Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Mark Abrams. I'm the content manager and a mentor over at pureMix.net, and I'm joined here today by the amazing Jacquire King. How's it going, Jacquire?
Very good. How are you, Mark?
Good, good. Thanks for doing this
Welcome.
today.
Oh, absolutely. Welcome everyone that's with us today.
Yeah, yeah, this is awesome. This is a PureMix Pro member Q&A session. We're wrapping up the mixing contest for your video with James Bay, mixing Let It Go. So
Yeah, there was a lot of great mixes. It was fun to hear all the different stuff, even stuff that was maybe too bold or just kind of a different approach. It was cool.
yeah, yeah, definitely. It's pretty wild. We had 272 submitted mixes for this. So thank you everybody for getting those in. Thanks for working on it and submitting them. It's always fun to see all the different ones that come. So before we get started here, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping stuff. I want to say thank you very much to Dave Durr and the entire team over at Empirical Labs. They sponsored the event and are giving away Arouser plugins to the top three winners. So if you guys aren't familiar with Empirical Labs, make sure you check them out. They are the creators of the famous distressor. And also, if you didn't get the chance, we actually had a Q&A session with Dave Durr about 2 weeks ago. And Dave came on and told us all about the story of the distressor and how he created that and what the inspiration was and stuff. So that was pretty fun. You guys can check that out on the page. You can go over to live events, and then you'll see the Q&A link for that. So you can just log in and watch that one. Um, yeah, so I guess to start things off, how about if we announce our winners and talk about their mixes a little bit and take a look
Yeah,
at it?
fantastic. Yeah, fantastic.
Cool. All right.
Sure.
So yeah, to start off again, just a reminder for everybody, the prize packages, the first place prize is going to get a 3-month pro membership to the site, so we'll extend your current pro membership. And second place is going to get 2 month, third place 1 month, and all three winners are going to receive an Arouser plugin from Empirical Labs.
That's
So
very cool.
yeah, pretty fun. So to start off, I'll announce our third place winner, and I really need to get a drum roll or something for this. We don't have one yet. So, yeah, cool. So third place prize goes to, I'm going to say Faberman because, Fab. So Faberman is our third place winner. And,
Well, actually, well, that
oh, wait,
was
do I have that wrong? I do have
yeah.
that wrong. Uh-oh. All right, hold on. All
Shouldn't
right.
shouldn't have been 10-4-8.
Yeah, yeah. So, sorry. Second place is going to be
Sorry that
Faberman.
happened, guys.
Yeah, yeah. Third place is going to be Sanamo. So my graphics are all wrong here. So everybody imagine you're seeing third place at the top right now. All right, so Sanamo is our third place winner. Uh,
Sorry, Mark. That not communicated well.
no, no, you were fine. I think I just wrote them down wrong on the graphics. That's all me. Cool. Yeah, so you had
And
some notes
I will
on this
say
one.
that deciding between all the honorable mentions and first place was a tricky task
Hmm.
for sure. So
Yeah, actually, I
and
should.
everyone should feel good. Everyone should feel good about participating. And I know that we need to categorize things and make first place and second place, third place. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, Santa Mo's mix. Should we talk about that?
Yeah, I guess before we launch into that, just
Yeah.
for transparency for everybody too, we had 272 mixes, and the word on the street is that Jaquire's a little busy making records. So usually with these contests, we pare them down to the top 10 mixes, and then we hand those out to the mentor. So those are all chosen by the team over at Flux Studios in New York. They all listen through the mixes and chime in on it, and then we submit the final 10 that we think kind of made the cut for Jakir to check out. So cool.
Yeah, that's good. I did go through the preview list and kind of just randomly listen to other stuff just to sort of see,
Hmm.
which was interesting, which we can talk about later because I had some observations about that I'd like to share. Um, but uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it was so yes, I picked these three from the 10 that were selected. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, do you want to talk about Sanimo's mix? Yeah.
Santa Mo's mix. My first overall thing was that that, I guess I just would say that in listening to this as the person who gave the mixing tutorial on the project, it was interesting for me to now listen to these mixes as the in this way, because I'm also the producer. So it's just like trying to separate myself from my vision and intention for it, and then just try and hear the value in all these different mixes. The thing that Santa Mo's mix that I think what was overall good to my ear and and my viewpoint on it is that the balances throughout very much reflected my intention of the production. So I was it was like, as everything sort of set out and as the song developed, all the balances sort of they sort of found that place that fit kind of the emotion and intention that I had kind of built into the production. So that was really cool. The other side of that particular coin is that I felt like that some of the balances needed a little bit more adjusting throughout as things developed, and as new things came in and perspectives shift. I would have liked to I've heard just a little bit more, volume writing and some effects changing. Perhaps another really good thing about it, I thought, was the way the drums and the bass felt connected to each other, and the weight that the sort of the appropriate weight that they gave the second chorus. That felt really good to me and appropriate, and it set up the bridge quite nicely, just because it kind of empties out a little bit, and the percussive elements sort of they change. So it set that up nicely. And I also really enjoyed where the background vocal level came in verse 2. But there again, that was I like it was a little bit bold and compelling the way it came in. But as the song and the mix developed, I felt like the background vocals kind of suffered a little bit. They started to get covered up by other things. I really liked where it started. I wish it had at moments kind of reminded me of that feeling. Overall great mix. And I think that one of the reasons I chose it is that overall it really served what I felt like the intention was in the production. And it would have been, I felt like it was hitting the mark. It's like, as a producer, if Santa Mo was mixing for me, I feel like, okay, we're on a great starter page. I can now sort of like understands the nuance and balance of things, and now we can just sort of get into some detail and pay attention to stuff like that. So I really, the heart of it felt really good to me.
Very cool. Yeah, it's neat to hear the perspective from a producer, going there, because you guys probably would have resolved a lot of those things if there were mixed revisions and so on.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. It's curious, like being so, it's one thing to mix a project, but then also to sort of, and this song is built in such a specific way, the intention of the production, I try to be really intentional. So it's funny. It's like if the mix in a way doesn't conform so much to the intention of the producer, me being the same person, it was a little interesting. Like, because some of the other mixes that weren't selected, things were just treated much differently, and it felt like it was missing some of the emotion and intention of the song and the production. So, but we can talk more about those specifics later.
Yeah, great, cool. All right, well, let's go to the second place here. So the second place, I'm not going to show the graphics since it's wrong anyway. This is confusing. So second place goes to Faberman. And you're going to be getting the 2-month subscription and a Rouser plugin. So let's talk about his mix a little bit. Sure.
What I really liked about this mix is early on is that especially the vocal had a really wide and sort of dreamy feel, because the way the guitars work, the main guitar part that plays the whole song is very dominant on one side, and there's sort of an effect that kind of carries a little bit on the other side, but you know, it can feel, it has a tendency to feel, it could feel a little lopsided.
Mm-hmm.
But what I liked about Faberman's mix, and especially in the vocal treatment early on, is that it was very wide and dreamy and helped fill out some of that space. It made the vocal feel it without them sounding like they were exactly kind of treated. They weren't treated the same, but it put them in emotionally, contextually, in a similar feeling environment. And so I really liked that. I thought the drum volume overall was good and very supportive
Mm-hmm.
of the whole arrangement. I thought that worked really well. And another highlight of this particular mix was that when it got to the down chorus, that some of that dreamy, some of that dreaminess that was established early on in the song, or in the mix, kind of backed off a little bit. So when it kind of came back to the lyric and the focus of the song was put back on to the vocalist, you got out of this sort of dream a little bit, and kind of the way it dried up and focused a little bit was very intriguing, and I enjoyed that quite a bit, because then it brought me back to James, the singer,
Yeah.
And then made the conclusion of the song even more powerful, because it kind of let it open back up.
Right.
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 So I enjoyed all those things. I enjoyed all those things about this particular mix. It's, same goes for my work. There are things that, like, if Faberman was mixing this for me as the producer, I think that there's notes and things to address. But there's a lot of good, and it's headed definitely in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting also in thinking about this, having done the sort of like instructional portion of this video, having mixed it on camera and sort of talked all the way through. When I got to the end of the filming and we said, okay, done, I feel very confident in that mix. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that mix is completely done. I never got comments from anyone. I never listened to it again in the context of, okay, now what would I change or refine?
Yeah.
So I think these mixes, I guess I just share that it's important to kind of get a little bit of time and perspective and other opinions. I know sometimes it can be very wearing and a little defeating. Sometimes the mix notes you get, but hopefully you should always expect them, and and just relish the moments where you knock one out of the park and nobody has anything to say.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, share all that, so because everybody should feel good about what they've done. I mean, focusing on the positives.
Yeah. It takes the team a really, really long time to whittle these down too, because they keep on having to go back to each one. Like they'll notice something that they love about one, and then they'll get 50 mixes down the line and be like, well, wait, how does it stack against this one back here? And,
Totally.
and all that. So
I had to do quite a bit of that this morning with making these final selections.
Yeah. It's definitely not an easy thing, especially everybody on the platform's extremely talented and everything too. So it's really hard. But
absolutely, I did not hear. Every mix was quality. I did not hear a bad mix.
Yeah.
Even of the ones you selected, but then also it's just sort of like, just doing a little quick preview of a bunch of other things just to sort of see. I didn't hear a bad mix. I heard some mixes that missed the point, I think, of production, and didn't sort of speak to the energy and heart of the way that it should be presented, but nothing sounded bad.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, it's great. One thing I'm gonna circle back to once we get through these prizes and stuff. You said a word that's come up on probably the last like 10 of these Q&A things that we've done, but intent and intention. That principle is something that I want to go back to with you, especially because your records have that throughout it. You always feel that there's a very clear direction in your mixes and your production. So just a note to myself that I'm going to go back there with you. So,
okay, well, I'd love to talk about it, and thank you.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so now we really need that drum roll thing, but here we go. First place First place mixer for a 3-month subscription and an browser plugin goes to KLWN. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I've seen this name as a winner before on other contests. So that was a pretty fun thing. We saw a couple of these that have popped up before.
Oh, nice.
So great job, guys.
Is that an acronym for clown? I don't know.
Let's go with it. Let's go with clown.
Okay. Yeah, really nice mix, and was just overall just had a little bit. It was just a little bit closer to intention. The reasons that I picked it are what I think some of the others kind of missed in sort of getting it closer to the finish line is that it felt more mixed. Like it felt like there were more volume rides. There was a little bit more like there was. I mean, this song is very difficult in the journey that it takes and stuff I talked about in the video, like getting the mix bus to be set up right for when the song is as full as it's going to get, but make it impactful and give it some gravity early on. Mm-hmm. I thought that this mix maintained a really great vocal balance throughout, and just the relationships were maintained and managed in a way where it felt a little bit more complete. Mm-hmm. The volume rides really sort of helped that. A couple other things that I enjoyed about it is that the vocal had a very cool and a delicate feel to it. It had presence and it was forward. It sat in the place of a well mixed vocal, but there was also, and I'm not really quite sure how this was achieved, but the compression, maybe it has something to do with the vocal chain in terms of like compression, because it felt present and forward, but that it wasn't, nothing was really stepping on it. All the nuance and the delicateness of the performance, especially early on, sort of also shined through. This was one of the rare mixes where I really felt like the dynamic and performance of the vocal was observed, but it was also presented in a strong, finished, polished way. And then also the other thing that I really enjoyed was the way that the organ sound enters the first chorus. Mm-hmm. It just sort of sat in the right place. It just sort of added the right, because that's the only thing that changes the scene there for that chorus. And it's a very simple thing, but it's so hugely important, and that just sort of like hit the mark for me in the right spot.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I just enjoyed the mix overall. It felt like it had been paid attention to every bit of the way. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like, okay, we got a good sound for this, let's balance it, and then just like it's going to kind of just do its thing while these other things come in. It's like there was thought at each stage to how things combined and carried on. So congratulations.
Yeah, great, awesome. Yeah, so that is Clown, as we're gonna call him.
Yeah.
KLW.
No offense.
Yeah.
I'm awesome. A clown.
Right. Cool. So let's go ahead and do something else real quick. I'm gonna make an adjustment here, and something that we haven't done in the past, but we're gonna try on this one is I want to make a note of the honorable mentions here, and again, I'm actually seeing some names that we've seen pop up before, but just going through them in no particular order. Alejandro.g. We had Oliver Moenster. I want to say Monster, but I'm resisting. Soon. Ricardo Sanval. Mingar. Evan L. Gross. And Victor Lofgren. So guys, great job. Those were our honorable mention mixes. Cool.
Yes, great job. Great job, everyone. And everyone that participated and didn't get mentioned, hats off. It's good. It's good work.
Absolutely.
It's good work. And it's encouraging and inspirational for me to to see to listen, to have have everybody involved and to hear this work. I'm very grateful. So, and everybody did a great job.
Awesome. Yeah. That's one other note about these things. We in a lot of cases, we try to use the term mixing challenges because we want to give away prizes and have incentives and all that stuff. But the real benefit to doing something like this is the practice that it takes you through, and at the end of that, having all 272 mixes on the site, it allows you to kind of check out your mix, see what parts pulled you and where you took the direction, but also listen to the other ones and see how other people might have approached it, and you might end up pulling some cool tricks out of that, or getting some really good takeaways from it. So the main point of these things is less of a contest and more of an exercise for everybody. So
yeah, I definitely see that as the value. Yeah, it's not, there has to be winners and losers, I guess, but yeah, it's just maybe what would you like to talk about now? Because I would like to make a couple comments about some of the observations I had.
Yeah, that's great.
Listening to the stuff that wasn't in the selection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's do it.
And this happened. I came across this several times in my sort of preview listening that some people were really heavy-handed with the drums. Mm-hmm. And they made it, which missed the point of the presentation of it. But it was cool to hear, the sounds that were derived, just some aggressive, really aggressive compression and distortion, and just how forward because I didn't record the drums to sound that impactful or forward. And so it kind of missed the intention, but it was cool. It was cool to see that. Now, I guess I was left wondering, it's well, why did they do that? I mean, because me having so much intimate knowledge and sort of, that was not my intention. It's what inspired that? It's cool to hear, but it was kind of not wrong. It just didn't suit. So just kind of thinking about that, and not knowing what not being able to name specifics or have a conversation about what that intention was, why the choice was made to do that. I think everybody should be encouraged to be bold and do things that are maybe a little bit against maybe what you feel like some of the intention is, to kind of create some different energy. I mean, sometimes mixes need that to sort of bring them to life. And I may be overly biased here, but I didn't feel like the appropriate move for this. So I'd be curious, to know, I won't know, but I thought about, well, why did they do that? And then, it's just or did they do that because that's the way they think everything should sound? Mm-hmm. And that, and I guess I just mentioned that because we need to be careful to try and pay attention to what the intention is, and to make the drums so heavy-handed sort of kind of went against just sort of what made the vocal kind of live in the song. Yeah. To me. So, I just kind of wanted to talk through that a little bit and sort of acknowledge that I thought it sounded cool, just didn't seem appropriate. And just point out that, if you feel like that you're one of those people, it's okay. I'm not mad about it or saying you did something that was wrong. It wasn't to my taste. And so maybe, it's a little bit difficult because I'm the producer. I had a certain intention for it. Maybe it would give the song a different life, mix, and maybe it's a cool thing. But I guess I just wanted to talk about it to say that we should look at each opportunity to mix a song as something unique, and if by chance it was done because that's the way that particular person thinks that everything should be done, just be careful. Just be careful of that. Don't just have one sort of set of parameters or bar that you put everything through, because while it will work for some things, certainly it will connect on some things, you'll miss some things. And there can be pluses and minuses to that. So it's just kind of like a discussion of awareness. It's not a right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I wanted to say about
Yeah,
that.
very good point. Let's actually hit that real quick. So when you say intention, what I hear in that song, if I were pulling up the mix or the multi-track for it, it's definitely built on key elements. So can you talk about what you see as the intention as a producer? Where did you build that off of? And let's maybe even talk about a little bit of the production process with the song.
Well, the song, the guitar part is fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
It carries the rhythm and interest and melody. It is the perfect companion for the song. It is like, it stands on its own. It could carry the song on its own. And it's a, very compelling vocal. The other stuff is in there because it, while that would stand on its own, and it could be a very good version of the song, especially in a live setting, mm-hmm. It doesn't really quite hold up as a record, just in terms of, the depth that you can create and kind of tell a story. But in this particular song, it needed to be built very carefully, and just adding one thing, adding very carefully, one thing at a time. It's just like, at the first chorus, the only thing that comes in is that keyboard. Mm-hmm. We did record vocals. We did record harmony vocals, background vocals in the first chorus, just to try it out. But I quickly decided that it's way too early for that. Let's wait till the second verse. It's like the bass waits until the post chorus to come in, mm-hmm. and then it just kind of adds, because then that section of the song is the first instrumental mm-hmm. bit of section of the song, and so it's just kind of like adding weight to it, giving it, expanding it a little bit more. In the second verse, the bass plays up higher, a little bit higher. It's a little bit more melodic. Mm-hmm. A background vocal comes in. It's just like, and the drums that come in are programmed. They're meant to feel very small. They're not meant to be proud and like part of a performance, not to make you visualize performance. It's just, the intention is to begin to give you some of the rhythm and keep the momentum of the song developing, make the second verse feel very different from the first. Mm-hmm. And then because the small electronic drums, it sets up the bigger organic drums, the bigger gestures, like the more performed stuff. Mm-hmm. And just sort of just making those choices so that in that way, so that the vocal and the guitar, which are the meat of the song, never felt like they were dominated, or even in equal partnership with the other stuff. The other stuff was there just meant to be like the supporting role. Mm-hmm. It was never meant to join forces and be as powerful as the vocal and the guitar. And so, that's sort of my thinking in terms of the reason it's built the way it is. I think it's very important the way that it gets back to that down chorus, mm-hmm. and really puts a focus back on the lyric. So it's just like you got to be careful how you crescendo before that,
Right.
And something I noticed in some of the mixes, and this is sort of a small thing, and it's kind of nitpicky, but the tambourine that's in the bridge, there's like a brushed snare that's recorded in the echo chamber, mm-hmm. or with the echo chamber, and that's really meant to carry the sort of rhythm, but it's also very. You've got the electronic drums, you've got some organic elements of the drums starting to build in, and then you get to the bridge, and there's this big scene change with what's going on percussively, and that drum, it's very simple. Yeah. It's just very simple, but the space that it's recorded in, the sound that it has, it is intended to give you kind of a release, and just kind of like, and so that tambourine that's in there, that's it's intended to make you feel the same thing that the electronic drums did when they came in, just to be a very quiet foundational partner. It's just like it should almost be, it's more felt than heard. And I just felt like many bridges that I listened to, and this is one of the reasons I was just sort of previewing a bunch of the other mixes that weren't on the in the final selection, is just to sort of kind of just to sort of see what other people were thinking about that. And I thought a lot of times that tambourine was just too loud. It was distracting. I felt like I was listening to the tambourine,
right.
And I kind of missed the intention of it just being a little bit of a rhythmic anchor, you know, and kind of continuing the theme of the electronic drums, but in a completely different way. And you know, and KLWN's mix, it was perhaps just a touch louder than I would have liked it, but it also felt like that it had been ridden up and down a little bit, so that it didn't feel like it was constant, like I was like constantly listening to the same thing. It's just like it was sort of moving in and out, I felt like that had a nice quality. And then, you know, there's a lyric change in the harmony. Like there is a lyric change in the harmonies at the end of the song, that was intentionally done to sort of to shift the perspective of the lyric, and you know, and sort of take it from you know, sort of the way it was sort of being voiced and presented, you know, and then sort of switch the feeling of it a little bit by changing the lyric a little bit. I mean, just lots of little things like that. The intention was for everything to just sort of be a very not a quiet partner, but just like to serve the vocal and the guitar, and never sort of try to be on equal footing with it. And that's why I mean, I would say that it's a sparse arrangement but it's a sparse arrangement that has there's a lot of different elements. I mean, like I mentioned, the electronic drums and the tambourines, it's like they trade it off. I mean, that's several elements, but they're kind of trying to just do one job, and they're not trying to do it together. It's just like there was a lot of thought put into the way that it would develop and change, but sort of never steal the show.
Yeah.
And I think when some people mix the drums too loud, or they just made it too forceful, it made it too much about those elements, and then it felt disembodied from the emotion of the vocal, and the lyric. So.
Sure. Yeah, and when I mentioned earlier that your records to me always seem to have that intention, especially like in your productions, all of those decisions are being made off of, for you, is it they're made off of the vocal, the lyric, the energy of the singer as it progresses from, as you say, scene to scene? Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's kind of all of the above. In this particular song, it really was about sort of making sure that the lyric and the story of the song felt like I didn't really want it to ever feel like it was like the chorus was a repeated theme, like not explaining it to you the same way every time.
Right.
You know, it's like I kind of wanted every time that the repeated lyrics came for it to make you feel and think something different, just to sort of keep opening the lyric up, you know. And honestly, I don't, you know, a lot of this I just do by intuition.
Yeah.
Sure. And just experimentation. And I also take cues from the artist. You know, it's just like, you know, create an overall vision for a project, like a feeling that I want, you know, try to get to understand what the artist wants to project, and then take each song as a little vignette within that, and then try to really hone in on, you know, displaying that certain character or side of the artist, and just frame it as appropriately as possible. I don't, you know, that particular case, I was trying to do what I was just describing with the vocal. It changed, you know, every song has a different energy. And for me, you know, it's like I guess I'm a truth seeker. I'm always just trying to find the thing that feels like it's the most important, and at any given time. Sometimes it's something like in this song that I feel like is the whole song, the
Mm-hmm.
vocal and the guitar is the whole song. Those things were important, and they needed to be the key figure the whole time. A lot of songs, a lot of productions, it changes. You know, it changes section to section, depends on yeah, the rhythm and the energy, and it's not always about the lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think we should always be able to understand what someone is singing, and that the melody is strong and concise. You know, it's just like that it's you know, concise and memorable. But it's different. It's different for everything. I just kind of
Sure.
I wing it, man. I don't know.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, subconsciously, I think that you know that you're gravitating towards something and
Mm.
you're working toward that goal. And yeah, like maybe you haven't thought at the beginning of the day that you're going to be doing the tambourine trick or using that thing, but when you get there, it comes because it's supporting the vision that you had in the
Yeah, I
beginning of
mean,
it.
it's just
Yeah.
like sometimes, you know, I don't remember specifically, but like go back to that tambourine. Well, I do know that that electronic drums did play. I mean, that was a thing that played the whole song,
Mm-hmm.
and it was ranged, and so it was like I just turned it off where it wasn't appropriate. And you know, I'm quite sure that's like, well, okay, these shouldn't be in the bridge, but something needs to continue this feeling.
Yeah.
How about a tambourine?
Right.
You know, it's just like it's like a series of events. It's just like
Yeah.
it's really like, you know, it's like if I'm going to walk from here into downtown, you know, I know that's where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I may start out, you know, I may start out on a certain path, but then, you know, get a few blocks on my walk and realize, well, you know, maybe I should take this other road because it's less congested, or, you know, just like
Yeah.
that kind of
It's going
thinking.
with the flow. Yeah.
Just go with the flow. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. It creating records and it's such a emotionally charged environment. You
Mm-hmm.
really do need to be able to kind of go with the flow and be patient and push and
Mm-hmm.
it's just be ready.
Yeah, yeah. And as an observer, just one last thing on the intention thing. When I guess for me, when I hear productions that don't have intention, it's usually things like following down a path of like a trick that you heard about the recording process. Instead of focusing on the song, it's like, well, I heard if I double guitars with a different microphone, guitar, and guitar amp, it'll sound huge. So I'm going to do that on the song, but it doesn't match what the lyric or what the song is trying to say. So when we say intention, that's sort of the thing, is like going after what the song's trying to speak, or what you, like you
Ab-
said, the artist's vision.
Absolutely. It's
So,
yeah, it's really just trying to make all the elements turn all the element make create a relationship where all the elements are playing together in harmony, and they you know they're making something that feels that you can pay attention to each role
hmm
and it has interest and depth, but it's all serving the one primary feeling, it feels united. And um, yeah, having you know collecting tricks or methods is fantastic. I mean,
hmm
you know, it's like I have tons of them, but I don't use them all the time. It's like sometimes you know, it's like I might be 5 years, like I might use a guitar pedal for a while and then get bored and then not use it for 5 years and then get it back out. And you know, it's like sometimes it's just out of inspiration, or you know, sometimes it's because it hasn't been appropriate or I burned myself out on it. But
hmm
um, yeah, it's just not always the same. You just kind of you got to pick and choose, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
And then when you find ways of doing things, like always try and reinvent it too.
hmm
You know, it's like um, it always be exploring because like the type of delay that may work on one vocalist, you know, I mean, you might want to use delay on another vocalist, but you know, that particular way that you have achieved it for one does not necessarily mean it's going to work for the other.
sure,
So you have to kind of you have to sort of think around like, well, I want to do that, but like, how do I make it fit? You know?
right, yeah,
So yeah, yeah.
right,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't feel like I'm making a strong point, but I think everybody kind of gets what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. So what was kind of fun about this video is, as you mentioned in the beginning of it, you weren't the original mixer on this. That was Michael Brower, correct?
Yep.
So it was pretty fun to watch the producer do the mix, and then we actually had a couple questions about from people coming in about the differences between your mix and Michael's mix, for
Hmm.
example. So we'll get to that, but when when you pulled up the multi-track for this, it again, as an observer, it seemed like you switched your hat over to mix engineer.
Hmm.
And maybe even outside of the context of this song, when you get a song just to mix, uh, and you pull up the multi-track, what's the first thing that you're doing?
Just trying to familiarize just do a quick mix of familiarization. Probably most of the time I've heard a rough mix,
Hmm.
or but I don't want to spend a lot of time listening to the rough mix because I don't want to have too much of an impression.
Hmm.
Just kind of want to be familiar. Start a mix. I just kind of pull it up and get a feel for it, balance it, or if it's already been balanced, if it's something I pull, if it's just raw tracks, then I try to balance it real quick and try to just sort of get a feel for the way that it works and where things are. Or
Hmm.
if it is balanced, maybe just list if it's already balanced in a session, just kind of give it a listen, understand where things kind of enter and leave the structure, how it's arranged, so I kind of understand what I'm working with, and just sort of take a big picture look at it, and kind of then start to understand the parts quickly. And my attitude is that if I'm being given something to mix, if nobody is telling me, if no one's saying to me that they feel like it needs something heavy-handed, or it needs an interpretation. Unless somebody says that to me going into it, I will assume that the intention is in front of me, and it's just a matter of me breathing life into it and presenting it, and making what I perceive as the intention feel good to me as a mix. I'm not trying to um, you know, I'm not trying to get in there and fix anything or make any judgments about what it is. I'm just like, this is finished. This is a finished recording, so I'm going to make it a finished mix.
Yeah.
Now along the way, sometimes you might realize like, well, I don't think that part needs to be there, or it needs to be presented in a completely different way, or it's like sometimes you maybe edit something, or it's like I don't necessarily, it's like I don't know, I don't love the way this particular element sounds. It's really, so I'm going to treat it like a recording engineer. I'm going to try and imagine if I was recording this, how would I want this to sound? Kind of just sort of stay on the surface as a mix, and sort of take off all of the creative judgment. Just
Hmm.
sort of say this is awesome, and I'm going to make it more awesome.
Yeah.
And just sort of start there.
Yeah. Great. Cool. All right. Well, let's see here. So,
Before we get into questions, can I
mhm.
quickly run and use the bathroom? Use the bathroom.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Sweet. Cool. So while he's doing that, guys, I'm going to tell you about some stuff that's been happening on pureMix lately. So, one really huge one that we're super excited about is the release of our brand new plugin from our sister company, Processed Out Audio. And that plugin is called Sugar. Sugar is a multi-section process exciter, harmonic exciter. There's a bunch of different things happening in each band. As you can see, there's 4 different modes, 2 below each band. We have thick and punch on the low, for example, shine excite on the high, so on and so forth. A lot of really fun combinations of things that you can put together with that. If you look in the middle, there's what we call the wet inject knob. And this is a parallel processor, so you're always hearing the dry sound. And as you turn that knob, you're injecting the processes that you've decided to put up at the top there, and it kind of moves like a VCA to control all those at once. There's 2 amazing sounding filters in it. There's a high pass and a low pass at the bottom, linear phase accurate, sound amazing. And there's a really great saturation built into there. There's 3 different flavors of saturation on there. So definitely check out Sugar. Best news is if you are a pureMix Pro member, which you must be if you're watching this, this plugin is free for you. So there's instructions on the main homepage of pureMix to go check it out. You guys can follow the link and figure out how to redeem your license for Sugar. So cool. All right.
Perfect.
Welcome back, Jacquire.
Hey, I just wanted to also add to your answering that question you had asked me. you know, uh, Michael did a great job mixing it. And when I send something off to somebody, as a producer, it's like I feel, it's like I feel like I could have mixed it, but there was something great about, and Michael mixing it. He's phenomenal. So,
Yeah.
but is his mix what my mix would have been? No, but I don't
Hmm.
listen to it that way. I listen to it like, okay, this is the way he's interpreting the intention, and and then working from that point to refine it. I mean, yeah, there were mix notes. Michael did not send back the finished final mix,
Yeah.
but I don't think that wasn't what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
Michael's much like myself, where he gets it to where he understands it. Everything's in place. It's vibing, and it's like, okay, I got it going. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. It's a
Um,
collaborative process.
yeah, I think that sometimes, especially early in my mixing career, I would overwork things,
Hmm.
being being afraid to sort of like know when it was time to sort of start to have that conversation, to realize that, okay, well, I'm going to send this mix for people to listen, and I'm a little bit vulnerable because it's not totally done, but I can't make it totally done without their voices either. So
Right.
it's a tricky thing, and I think also what's also tricky about it, especially when you're starting out and you're not a known mixer, is that you don't want to lose the gig either. You want somebody to like it. So
Hmm.
it's just like it's a very difficult thing you have to manage yourself through.
Yeah.
Um, but just that I just mentioned that for awareness and just the thought process of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Thank you for that. So let's see here. Let's go to our first question. So this is going to be from the pre-submitted questions,
Sure.
and our first one is this actually right in line with what we're talking about. This is from Diego Ortega from Mexico City, and he asks, "How many mix versions does it usually take you to get to the final mix, and how do you keep perspective to avoid overcooking the song?"
Good question. I would say that most of the time you're looking at anywhere between 6 and 8 revisions in
Mm-hmm.
in um, in the modern world that we live in, because almost all mixing is unattended. Not everybody listens at the same time or with the same focus, or you get comments back a lot, just when they've listened one time on headphones.
Right.
There's not all the information comes at the same time. I would encourage everybody to try to, when you're dealing with a client or an artist or a band, sort of have them, it's like, okay, I need one person to discuss all the notes on that side and be a conduit to me of like what you guys agree are the notes. I don't want to get an email from each person,
Yeah.
because it's just like, you guys figure out what it is that as a group you want to say to me, you as the artist, whether it's singular or multiple.
Mm-hmm.
It's not unheard of that. It depends on the client. It depends on the material. Depends on how good of a job you are doing initially. Sometimes it's very difficult to know, especially early on in a mixing project, um, how to get to the result quickly. I mean, the first couple mixes um, might take a little bit more revisions to kind of get everybody on the same page and start speaking the same language.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I, a fast mix is like 1 or 2 revisions. I mean, the mix I send out, I anticipate that there's something I will want to change about it, but I'm not too worried about it. I'm not too worried about figuring everything out before I send it.
Yeah.
It's just like, I feel good enough about this that I feel like I know where I stand and I want to interact with it. If you get past, when you get past like maybe 8 revisions, 6, 8 revisions, yeah, then you are getting in danger, depending on what you're being asked to do for revisions, of losing the spirit of it.
Yeah.
And so while you have to be able to respect the process, you also have to stick up for yourself, and say, if you think it is too much or it is losing the plot, but also work in a way where that you can get yourself back to a version if you
Mm-hmm.
need to. however you manage the information to do that.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you have any quick tips for that? Just nomenclature and.
I mean, every time I do a mix revision or make a change, I save a different version of the session.
Hmm.
Every time anything, even recording process through mixing process, any time I do something new or significant, I save a version of it. I make a new playlist. Like if I've got drum edits and it's like I've done drum edits, like make a playlist, consolidate it, it's clean, and then if there's a further edit I'm gonna do, I'll make a new playlist. It's just like I have a complete history of everything that I've done, so that I can go back to it. Because so maybe, the editing doesn't feel right in the chorus,
Hmm.
so I can go back to the pre-edited version, grab those drums, and either leave them alone or do it differently. Mixing should be kind of the same thing because
Yeah.
we can pull in, like mix revision 4. Maybe on revision 4 the vocals got feeling right, and then it was, the automation and the effects was pretty sweet there. Subsequently, because on revision 6 you got asked to turn up the background vocals, you made a change to the lead vocal, and then it sort of got off track. It's like, so for maybe revision 7, I could go back to my version 4 vocals, pull those in, and take another stab at changing the background vocals that it inevitably made me change the vocal that didn't need to be changed.
Yeah.
Because you can pull the information in. I also think that if you are the engineer and mixer on a project, make rough mixes as you go. Don't wait to the end. Build a mixing relationship with the production and the track that you're working on, so that when it comes time to mix, you already have internalized some of the things you're going to need to do.
Sure.
I guess that's the best. Just be organized, and,
Right.
and understand how you can kind of get back to things. And if you're going to make a big change where you think it might be hard to, to undo all the 10,000 little things you had to do to get there, just kind of save versions of it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's a big one, is when somebody says, "Can you go back to how the vocal was in version 4?"
Yeah,
Yeah. Being able to say yes is a good thing.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Cool. I'm gonna pull one in from the live chat here,
Yeah.
and let's see. So let's go with, what kind of tools do you use to generate electrical drums? So maybe even the ones, how did you guys do the drums that were in Let It Go, or what do you normally like to do?
Oh, I mean, just sound. I mean, sound libraries. I mean, there's so many good ones, and I manipulate samples. I don't even remember where those drum samples are from. I make my own lots of times.
Mm-hmm.
There's, Logic, Ableton. I know this. I know a guy that, Eric, that worked as a programmer for me on the Parachute album I made, and Eric makes a lot of his samples, just like out of found sounds.
Yeah.
He'll like bang two chopsticks together and make a rim click sound out of it by the way he treats it, and cuts it up. And
Yeah.
it's really, there is no one source. I mean, there's that sound library that has like Aaron Sterling drums,
So good. Yeah.
which is so good. I mean,
Mhm.
Logic has lots of great drum kits in it, native instruments. It's really about, there isn't really any one particular place. It's just like kind of knowing what your favorites are in each place,
Yeah.
pulling things together, making your own samples. When you record drums, always make drum samples of your drum recording before when you've got the drums recorded, and before you move on to something else and change anything about the drum setup. Make a full set of, just like a few hits on the kick, a few hits on the snare, turn the snares off, hit the toms, hi-hat, but do it in the style of the song,
Yeah.
And then, it's like, So you have a catalog of those. You can catalog your own sounds.
Mm-hmm.
We use many of our own samples that we from record making process.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing to do is that if you want to, instead of gating your kick, your snare, or your rack tom, if that's something appropriate, if you've made your own samples of the same drum kit you just recorded, instead of replacing the toms with, or like supplementing them with samples from something else to kind of get more clarity, or less leakage, you just put your own toms in as the samples, your own kick drum. Like sometimes a drummer's foot will dynamically be a little too much variation on a kick in the drum you've recorded. You take your own sample and put it in there. It's just like,
Yeah.
and you blend it in. You're getting rid of the drum bleed. It's the same exact instrument. You don't get any weird phase stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
It just sounds a part of it, and it's really consistent and clear.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. Hope that helps.
Without having to overcompress and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's do another one from the live room. I'm gonna fire through a couple quickly here. So Thomas Christofferson is asking. This is interesting, putting you on the spot a little. Jacquire, had Michael's mix been in the pool of mixes as you heard it for the first time, do you think you would have noticed it and chosen it? It's an interesting one.
Oh, he's asking if it had been in the pool of mixes, would I have chosen it?
Yeah, yeah.
Ooh, that is a good question. It's really hard to say. I think
Also,
I would. I think I would have chosen. I think I would have certainly. I mean, it's a great mix.
Mm-hmm.
I would have chosen it. I think I would have chosen it as. Yeah, that's kind of hard to answer because now if it was, and if it was the very first mix, I think it would have stood the same chance as anything else.
Sure.
It's a very good mix. Many people put in good mixes. It is the definitive mix of that song.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to say. Would I have chosen it over some of these other things? Maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. Michael did a great job. Like, he found the intention of it.
Right.
It wasn't a hard mix to make,
mm-hmm.
to finalize with Michael at all.
Mm-hmm.
But in all honesty, I mean, my mix doesn't sound like Michael's mix.
Right. Yeah.
So would I have picked my mix over? So would I have picked my mix over Michael's mix or any one of your mixes?
Mm-hmm.
That's hard to say.
Yeah, of course.
It's really, really hard to say. I don't know if that answers it, but
yeah. Well, let's keep going down that thought. So I'm gonna flash a couple graphics until I find the right question here. But there was a good one submitted about Michael's mix. Let's see. So give me a second here, guys. Let me get to this one. Okay, here we go. So this is from Sam in No Man's Land. It's a great place. Regarding the original mix of Let It Go by Michael Brower, there are several percussion tracks that are barely noticeable or even muted. He says, parentheses, at least we don't hear them. And he's asking, is it because the production was not the same back in 2014 as it is now with the stems you provided for the contest? Or is it Michael who decided to discard or lower those percussion elements?
Yeah, we just did that. Yeah, that was a decision. No, you have exactly the same track that Michael had.
Yeah.
It's just a decision that was made.
Yeah.
Yeah, by myself and Mike, by myself, by Michael, and James.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that probably Michael led in some of those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, being barely audible was part of the intention.
Right.
Just the feeling is there. It doesn't just because the instrument is there doesn't necessarily it needs to be distinctly heard. It's there to kind of create an energy, sometimes, and so I mean, volume in mixing, I think this gets overlooked, especially in the modern age of having 1,000 EQs and compressors and all kinds of crazy plugins. In the studios of old, before we could all mix in the box, it's like you had to be in a pretty whiz-bang studio to be able to put a compressor on everything.
Yeah.
Or until the SSL desk came along.
Right.
Like the most powerful tool in mixing is volume.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that things are, you know, the way things are balanced and presented and pitted against one another. That will always be the most powerful thing. And the fader is the most powerful. The volume, you know, it is the most powerful thing. Like Al Schmidt is an incredibly fast mixer.
Yeah.
It's because he basically still does it old school.
Yeah.
It's a great job. It's not complicated. He uses the most important tool and ability that we have, volume.
Yep.
He knows how to quickly balance things without a lot of fuss and a lot of EQ or compression. He just knows how to like bang it into place old school, and it just sounds great.
Yeah.
You know, that's it, you know.
Yeah.
And that's part of that decision making and understanding that power. Because not everything needs to be like bam, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody's obsessed with like, you know, how hard hitting can it be?
Right.
But you know, it's just like you've got to understand that in certain productions, certain mixes, that not every, you know, only some things can sound that forceful. Other things need to give it a little bit of depth and contrast and content.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Contrast is one of the key things there, right? Because if everything is loud and you know, super loud, then it's just loud. It's not.
Yeah. Well, then it's
more
just all just loud. Nothing's really loud, is it?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because if something's loud, that means something's quiet.
Right.
If it's all loud, then it just does. Then there's no relationship. It's just like it's everybody shouting.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's like the NAMM floor.
Yeah. So it's a very good question. Very good question about picking a mix. So
mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, let's go to another one here. So let's see. Interesting. Okay. So this is from Brody in Toronto, kind of along the same line of what we're talking about. Hi, Jacquire. When listening to a lot of the pureMix members' mixes, including mine, I noticed that the instruments all sounded pretty loud and hot. The instruments are played quite softly, and your mix is a lot quieter, but also a lot more clear and focused. How did you maintain your gain staging to accomplish this?
Well, I mean, it really is. It's like, I mean, I think I probably did a much better job in the tutorial video on the mixing because I had the stuff in front of me, and I can really be more specific about it. But in a song like this, it's really kind of getting familiar with your elements, starting to shape them in the way you believe they need to sound, mm-hmm. and then using our most powerful tool, volume, create the relationship. And then I went and I spent a significant amount of time in the loudest part of the most, you know, congested, loudest, fullest part of the mix, and really just got that sorted out and got my gain staging sort of like appropriate for that. And I went to the beginning of the song and looked at how that played into, you know, where I was going to go. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think that I did make some adjustments, you know, and kind of trying to find the happy medium, if you will. But the louder part of the song is really what I had to anticipate and make sure. I mean, oftentimes in mixing a track, sometimes I spend a lot of time, if I'm mixing something for someone else, a lot of time the middle of the song, second chorus, bridge is where you have like that's where the build up and the crescendo and the dynamic is going to be the most representative of the whole. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, Andy Wallace, I know, does this too, just kind of like just loop up that thing and get that main section, main dynamic energy of the song just banging. And then you can go back to the beginning of the song, and then you might have to turn up a guitar part in the beginning of the song, like 5-6 dB, to sort of to you know, have the volume and the presence that it needs early on, and it's not going to need to be as loud later because of all this other stuff. And then, you know, the end, a lot of times that the end of a song gets even a little wilder and fuller than that second chorus, let's mm-hmm. say. but it's supposed to feel a little bit, you're supposed to have this journey of where you're pulled into the song, it's building, it's working, it's going, and then you've got this just like the meat of it is just like, it's like that's hitting home. And then, usually the conclusion of a song is meant to be an expanded feeling of that. And sometimes it gets a little bit looser, a little bit louder. There's, more distorted instruments come in. There's like ad-lib vocals or whatever. And it's okay that sort of pushes sort of pushes it a little bit towards kind of being a little.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, and I would say, yeah, I mean, I don't want to just push the question off, but I would say watch the video again, and it's specifically about this song, and there is a section about where I spend some time on that. But those are a couple pointers that I would also say to sort of try and manage that.
Yeah, it's great. I think somebody robbed a bank outside of my house. I don't know if you can hear that right now.
Oh yeah.
Like I just heard a car go like flying by really, really loud, and now there's police chasing. That's a little crazy. All right. Anyway, sorry, distracted. Right. Yeah. Exciting. I should point the camera out there. Okay. Cool. So, in regards to gain staging, we had another question about this, and there's a video I believe Graham Hawthorne did with you, a trick that you had showed him about bass and kick relationships, and let me go ahead and find this real quick. Don't mind the police shootout outside of my house here.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's hit this question, and we'll see if it doesn't actually refer to the kick and bass relationship. But this is from Sam in Portland, Oregon, and he's asking, in regards to the metering bus that you create off the 2 bus, I have a multiple part question. So first part, when you say that Pro Tools is calibrated to -18 and you make your VUMT duo -9, does that mean that you get more or less volume or resolution? Or I guess, how is it better than -18? So let's hit that part first.
Oh, well, they're two different things. -18 is the way that the converters are calibrated. It's a reference level that they're calibrated to get sound in and out of the computer. That reference level is not the same as the internal gain structure that I'm creating with the mix. The VU meters, it's I guess it's important on one hand to understand the reference level that you're working at into the computer and out of the computer with the converters, but that's just sound in and out, and how it relates to all the external gear that you're using. Once because the thing is like I can be at -18 as my reference for my conversion. But if I record a kick drum in, and it's, if it's at, it's peaking at -20 versus -1, I still recorded it at the same reference level in. Sure. So the -18, 16, 14, 20, whatever it is you're using, that's sort of, that's one thing. The VU meter, and also, the meters that we're looking at in Pro Tools, the classic meters or whichever ones you're using, you can switch them to a VU type of ballistic and setting, but the VU meter is very different than the standard Pro Tools meter, and that -9 level really doesn't have anything to do with the -18. It's just it's just like a gauge. There's the LUFS scale that we need to understand. The thing is like there are so many different scales and references that they all are looking at the same thing, but they're different references, and they don't equate to each other. So the VU is just, for me, I use the VU because I've been when I started, that's all we had. We didn't have the kind of ballistics and metering we have now. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when I started making records 30 years, or yeah, more than 30 years ago, gosh, is different. So I use the VU because it's something familiar to look at. You know, the way that low end and like low frequencies and high frequencies react on a VU meter is very different than what we're used to looking at as Pro Tools meters. And -9, I just know that, you know, if I set that VU to -9, that is going to give me and I get it, you know, up around 0 or over 0. I know that that's going to get me a very hot mix. That's about as hot of a mix as I'm going to want to print. I would say that that's probably going to get me something close to 10 or 11 LUFS.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not the same thing. I don't know if I'm
Right.
I don't know if I mean, maybe Mark, maybe you can explain this better, because I don't know enough about the technical deep dive to be able to like explain it.
Sure.
I understand, but I don't have all the detail to be able to make it very like black and white and write it out for you.
Yeah, but it sounds like over, you know, using experience is the reason that you have your VU set to 9, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of know what to expect from those things. So that's probably the main answer to the first part of the question.
Yes. Sorry to be so long-winded.
No, that's good. Yeah.
Sometimes I set it to -12. You know,
Yeah.
if I don't feel like if I'm not going for as loud of a mix, and you know, if the content is a lot denser and there's a lot more compression, and if it's hard hitting rock, I might mix it at -9 on the VU meter. I might mix it at -12, and just knowing that, you know, I want to leave the mastering engineer somewhere to go. I would prefer that my masters are always turned up as opposed to turned down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the mastering process, I want to kind of give the mastering engineer a little bit of that latitude still. I chose -9 for the James Bay mix because it's a quiet song.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make sure that I was getting it up as loud as you know, I thought I possibly could, without, like, you know, hammering it into place.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and so yeah, it's a familiar reference.
Yeah. It's an experience thing, and based on what you think it needs to sit at dynamically on a meter, right? Yeah. Cool. Okay, let's see if there was a second part to this question. So, so he says, I've tried to instigate this metering bus scenario, and have found it a very tall task to get the duo to hit the goal of 0 when I have it at -9. Even with some more bombastic content than Let It Go. I'm using Logic Pro X, mind you. I noticed, and maybe I missed something, that at the end of the video you go back to the analyzer and you look for imbalances, but I don't recall you checking the duo for whether it approached 0 or not. So
yeah, it's the 0 on the duo is not it's a reference. So it's just like a reference. It doesn't I don't recall if I was over or under 0.
Mm-hmm.
It's just sort of like a general target.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure why you're maybe having trouble getting your output of your mix up to where it's able to hit 0 at a -9 reference. Maybe, you know, it could be like, you'll observe the way that I typically approach the stereo mix bus compressor. It's like I put the threshold as high as I can possibly make it, and I push as much sound as I possibly can into that gain stage before it'll start doing compression. You may have your threshold way too low, and that it's starting to you're not able to get as much content in there before it starts doing its job. And I think I also kind of talked about this, is that in the gain staging of this James Bay mix, it's kind of it's sort of poor mix engineering to turn the output of my compressor, my mix bus compressor, up to the point to where I start to get that level, because that's not the best way to use the gain staging within the compressor itself.
Yeah.
So I'm not really. I mean, you may have your threshold set too low. and you just maybe the onset of compression may be just at too low of a balance to get you up to that level. That may be what's happening. That would be the first place that I would look. And again, if we go back to where I was describing getting the gain staging for this particular mix, you'll see some insights about that, and hopefully I will have said something that will be a little bit more informative. But it's not a hard and fast rule. It's just it's a familiar reference for me.
Yeah.
And sometimes I put commercially released music in my Pro Tools session and observe what it's doing. How does it look? Like, how smashed to bits is it? And where does it show up on my meter? And do I think, it's like just kind of like getting a reference and understanding.
Yeah. And it's good to have, the references where you hear something and you're like, that's the point I never want to get to with how smashed it is. So let me see where that is. And that's like my ceiling. And then that thing's really dynamic and maybe too dynamic or whatever. So here's my other thing or my other reference. And yeah.
Absolutely. And asking, and when you get stuff mastered, hopefully you're doing it with someone that's experienced and knowledgeable, and ask questions, like, how can I do this better? I always ask the mastering engineer for feedback.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like we're different people every day. So it's just like, I don't think I get it 100% right every time. I kind of want to, and it's, this is always evolving. Things are, thank God, things are getting quieter.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there are still a lot of mixers that just hammer stuff, and there's still a lot of people that are really impressed by that. But when you deliver a song for streaming, I'm happy that it's more dynamic. It's actually, I'm able to mix an album or mix a project and know that I don't have to smash it to bits to impress anybody necessarily. It'll sound good on streaming, and that same mix will sound good on vinyl because it's at a lower level. It's dynamic, and sometimes it's better to make a mix and finish a mix with good gain structure and know that it needs to be turned up louder, and then separately put some heat on it and kind of master it before you to your client. Don't try to do it all in one fell swoop.
Sure. Well, two things. One, for anybody who's kind of wondering about the LUFS thing, I'm just going to interject this really quick. We released a tool about a month or two ago, and it's a LUFS analyzer on the website. It's another perk for pro members. You guys can use that. You just go to puremix.net/LUFS-analyzer. And it'll you can put your track in there, and it'll show you where you're hitting, what LUFS level you're hitting on there, and you can select different targets. So it'll also tell you if you're submitting to Spotify, what Spotify is going to do to your mix, and then give you a couple suggestions based on that, which are all up to your interpretation. You obviously have to decide what feels best for your mix based on that, but it'll tell you, Spotify will turn your mix down, so you could avoid that by doing X. So it's something to check out. And then along
very valuable.
Cool. Yeah. Along the mastering line of questioning, I'm gonna find their question here. It's really funny because a lot of the pre-submitted questions are hitting the topics that are naturally coming up, which is great. I just have to find it. Here we go. Okay. This one is from Dimitri in Ashdod, Israel, and he says, "Hello, dear Jacquire. Do you master yourself, or do you have mastering done by a dedicated mastering engineer?"
It's situational, both. I prefer to have a good outside ear to work with. That's my preference, but it can also be tricky. Because not the same mastering engineer is not right for every project. Like the same as mixer. Not every mixer is right for every project. Yeah. I do master stuff myself. I master stuff for other people. It's just sort of situational. I think. I guess my first preference would always to be have outside help, outside ears. Mm-hmm. I sort of end up mastering my own stuff. Wow, big thunderstorm outside. I master my own stuff out of necessity sometimes. because of maybe budgetary reasons, or maybe I've made an independent album where it's we're going to release it. It's going to be released to Spotify. There's going to be a limited pressing. So maybe I'll master that with the hope and the intention that, like, if we duplicate more of these, or it gets signed, that maybe we'll have it mastered again. Maybe not. My preference would always be to have somebody else do it. When I master things, I try to just do it as simply as possible. Just a little bit of Oftentimes I use Vintage Warmer, because that plugin is so complete in its ability and flexibility to kind of mold something and get really great sounding level, and then EQ. So a lot of times, like if for instance, I'm mastering an EP for somebody, or myself, I'll put I'll see if I can find something on Vintage Warmer that will address the level and finished sound for all the songs. It's not always possible, but then I'll going into that, each song will have its own EQ or particular treatment maybe that it needs, and I kind of treat the Vintage Warmer, and I use the Vintage Warmer 2, by the way, as sort of like the final, like this is going to be kind of the final stage, and the color and level for the EP or the project, and then I sort of manage each individual song into that with some EQ or whatever maybe it needs. Cool. I just try to keep it simple. I mean, mastering is a little bit of a dark art. There's a lot of ways to do it. I don't personally love delivering stems to mastering, because I don't really want some mastering engineers will tell you that it's maybe a little bit easier to deal with certain things, and I think because maybe they're dealing with mixes from maybe less experienced, less accomplished mixers at times, the volume of their work is so high that maybe that's an easier way to help their clients sometimes. My personal preference is for them to master the mix. I don't want them to get inside the mix and sort of remix it. I understand that sometimes it's a better way to do certain things, but I would rather have them tell me what is not working about my mix, and try and fix it on my end, as opposed to give them the latitude to fix it. I'm not saying that's not, for me, that's not the right way. Maybe if you're kind of like learning, and you have the luxury of working with a really accomplished mastering engineer, maybe going through that process and sending them the stems could be helpful, because maybe they can specifically tell you, well, this is why I had to do this to your bass. Bass stem to get it to work. But that's my 2 cents on all that.
Great. Okay, so it's about let's see, it'd be 1:23 your time. So how are you doing on time right now?
Let's 20 minutes or so.
Cool. Okay, sweet. Let's get a couple more questions in. Let's see. So I can echo this one. So it says, Jacquire, I have to say you've worked on. Sorry, this is Clint Kalinek in the live room, and he says, Jacquire, I have to say you've worked on a ton of my favorite records, Of Monsters and Men, Augustana, James Bay, Mute Math, Kings of Leon, etc. What are some of your favorite records that you've worked on?
Well, I love that you mentioned Mute Math. Tremendous band. I
have questions for you about that one.
What's that?
I have questions for you about that one.
Okay. Oh gosh. Well, the ones that you mentioned are some of my favorite. I mean, Tom Waits is huge. I mean, honestly, I've made records that some of you guys have not heard of that have been, like Pictures and Sound. Ford Terrell. I mean, there's just really so many. I feel very fortunate that I have so many, good memories and favorites. I would say that Tom Waits was just really important, and a favorite because I was such a huge. I am a huge fan. I was a huge fan before I got to work with him. I learned so much. Um, I've just had so many great opportunities. I love the project I'm working on right now. A band from New York called Oak and Ash. It's we're just having a great time and just trying to push the. I'm always trying to do something a little bit fresh too. Just trying to, as music evolves and technology evolves and our taste evolves and just always trying to do something, just do something new. I mean, obviously Kings of Leon. At the time, especially when we made Only by the Night, I honestly believe they were one of the best bands in the world, at that time. And it was a huge opportunity. It was really special. We swung for the fences, and it worked. That's a really, really cool feeling. Working with Norah Jones was really special and amazing. I can say all the names that people know, but I have had equally great times with people that are lesser known, and I've had less than stellar occasions to write home about with people that you know about, which I won't mention. But yeah, I just try to look at. It's a really weird thing that we do in a way. It's hard to relate to a lot of people. It's kind of very privileged and special. So I just try to appreciate it all. I just really try to appreciate it all.
Yeah, yeah. There's a question that we have an interview series coming out with all the mentors pretty soon, and there's a question that we always ask in that, and that is, how does it feel to go from making a record with a superstar to then going and deciding to make a record with an unknown artist? What are some of the differences for you with that?
Well, I think it keeps it interesting. The thing is like with a superstar, you have somebody that they have a very established identity, so sometimes there's a comfort zone, and there's some things that they're not willing to get away from. They're also very powerful people too. They have a strong voice. They're successful. They are defined. So they're not as malleable, and that can be a positive too, because they know exactly where they stand and what they want to do. And then it's just like, so you're meeting them in that place, and it can be very powerful in that way. They're usually experienced record makers. They kind of know the process. So you can do things in a very focused, elevated way, which can be a real pleasure. I mean, some of the downsides are they're very locked into who they are, and that it's hard to get them out of their comfort zone. They maybe come to you because they want something different, but then they end up gravitating back towards what is familiar. So there's that struggle. With a new artist, it's just like, as the experienced record maker, you're sort of the more knowledgeable, experienced person in the room, and so you're kind of teaching and guiding, and so that feels fun and new too, and it's obviously, if you do something with someone that is unknown that becomes known, that's a very gratifying feeling as well, because you sort of help take something that was unknown and introduce it to the world. I enjoy both, really, and I try to balance going back and forth, because there's something to be gained and enjoyed in each situation that they can feed each other, and just just to enjoy the interaction. It's I guess if I had to choose one or the other, I would choose the unknowns.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's the stakes are. I mean, the stakes are always high when you're making a record, but it's different when you're with somebody that's unknown. Because it's all up for grabs. There's no preconceived notion from the world. There's no outside voice.
Yeah.
It's like if you're making a record with somebody that's famous, just subconsciously you have all of that weighing on you,
Right.
you know, and which can be good pressure, but it's also something that's defined and it's an outside voice, you know.
Yeah.
But then working with an unknown, you might be left wondering, well, will anybody like this? You
Sure.
know?
Yeah.
So
Right.
yeah, yeah, it's just fraught with you know with pluses and minuses. But I would choose the unknowns.
Yeah.
I take a lot of pride in um, the records that I've made with people that help them become established.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
you become part of something
Right.
uh, in a different way, and I like that the most.
Yeah. Yeah. You always seem to enjoy the exploration on your projects, and that really shows through in the work with it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so um, going to the Mute Math thing. I'm a
Yes.
huge fan of that band. Absolutely love those records. And the first one you were involved with, correct?
They had an EP which
Mm-hmm.
I was involved in and mixed, and then their first full length album. Yes, I mixed.
Yeah,
I was involved in that and mixed that. So it was.
awesome.
Did you have a specific question? Sorry.
Yeah, not really. I'm just fanboying. No, I'm kidding. What was your role in those first ones? That I just remember at the time, especially, and still to this day, really, there was nothing really that sounded like those records, and they were just so full of experimentation. Um, were you a producer on those?
Well, no, I was not the producer. I was primarily the mixer, but in
Mm-hmm.
the way that the projects were, the way that it was done. I mean, the EP was a little bit different. Like the material was mostly, almost all completely recorded before I was given it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I had been talking to Paul and Darren for quite some time because you know Paul had been in this other band that I almost made a record with, and so we kind of had a relationship. So going. But so the EP I just mainly mixed,
Mm-hmm.
but I did put a lot of creative spin on it,
Yeah.
you know. And then when it came to that full length album, I would start mixing the songs about halfway through the production process
Mm-hmm.
because I was helping to interpret all this experimentation and like how to make it kind of hang together as a mix, and so mixing as it was being made, I think it was tricky for everybody, but it was also very informative and sort of helped define and narrow down some of all those experimental choices and trying to really kind of get to the drum sounds that were
Yeah.
created,
Mm-hmm.
and just the sort of the way, you know, sometimes I would mix things and then they would re-record half of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they'd realize that it didn't, you know, it didn't feel a certain way, or they would ask me in a subsequent mix to completely change my approach in treating something, you know, and they just kind of let me have at it, and I just take things that, I mean, honestly, it felt kind of incomplete at first,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so you're trying to make sense of some things and trying to maybe make things fill a bigger role than they ended up, but then
Mm-hmm.
it would influence it. And it's just kind of, I mean, I think that process probably was 6 months. You know,
Yeah.
I would mix for a few days or a week, and then they'd work on it for, you know, a few weeks, and then I'd come back, and turned out tremendous. This is
Yeah.
really, really awesome. I wouldn't recommend that for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a cool process.
Yeah, it's such a fun record.
You
Yeah.
know, Paul is he is a very hands-on, very you know, talented visionary. But it takes him a lot of experimenting and
Mm-hmm.
tinkering to get to it. You know, it's just like, and I remember even when after the mixes were done and we started to master the record, we got the mastering back, and the mastering was good. But you know, Paul's like, okay, well, this is working about it, but you know, then he mastered it.
Hmm.
Then Paul mastered it, said like, could we get it to reflect some of this feeling, you know? So it's just
Mm-hmm.
like with them, it's always a back and forth,
Yeah.
finding the way to make it speak. And I think that first record does the best job of it.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that record. There was just so many experimental sounds and everything, but that's definitely, while you're listening to it with production ears on, you're thinking, man, how many like extra takes and playlists and reels, in their case maybe reels of tape because they were distorting things into tape machines, and just how much stuff was left on the cutting room floor to arrive at this at this
A
point.
lot, a
Yeah.
lot,
Yeah.
a vast majority. I mean, I remember some early stages of that where they would bring over, because we were working in Logic, and I would just take the raw tracks and not trying to mix it, but I would run the raw tracks through my desk and on my tape machine and sort of transform them and like carve them into what was more towards what I would want to do in the mix, but I wasn't really trying to mix. It was sort of like almost reshaping and re-recording.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that 60 to 70% of the stuff that was recorded is not part of the final result.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. It feels that way when you're listening. It's just, wow, so much time and thought had to go into creating a lot of the sounds on here, and it's really, really a fun listen. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Labor of love.
Yeah.
Not all records can be made that. Most records should not be made that way.
Sure. Yeah. For people's sanity.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a pre-submitted question regarding the Tom Waits record. And then just to be respectful of your time, maybe we should wrap up shortly after that. So let me find our Tom Waits question here. And I'm going to get there. Let's see. Sorry, apologies here. Here we go. Okay, sorry. So this is from Martin van der Ginten from Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And he says, Mule Variations by Tom Waits is one of my favorite records, musically as well as sonically. So first of all, many thanks for that. It sounds so deliciously dry and intimate yet spacious. Do you remember something special in the recording or mixing process by you or Oz Fritz concerning this? Was it reverbs, extra room mics?
Yeah, I mean, Oz and I, we definitely recorded a lot of room tones. There's even if it's just a piano vocal performance, there are room sounds. We recorded in unusual spaces. We tried to maximize maximize the environment. Really make the signature of the sound be part of the space that it was in, because Tom is very much a performer, very much in the moment. A lot of the vocals are live, so yeah, it's the ability to kind of capture those spaces, but have things that are hi-fi and lo-fi recorded together to kind of keep them separate, but kind of create that complexity and that contrast. Just kind of trying to accentuate the depth as much as possible. We also would reamp things, and like the bass part on Georgia Lee, it was played very quietly. The gentleman that played that part was played very quietly, and it didn't really speak in the room in the same way that some of the other instruments were. I mean, actually, I think that song was recorded as piano and upright bass and vocal to start. And so the bass was just, so what I did is I reamped the bass through into the same room that the original recording was made in, with an SVT, and I turned it up quite loud. You don't hear it as a loud, I didn't do it so that the bass sounded distorted or loud or aggressive, but I did it to kind of get the room to react, and the room sound to sort of be part of the bass sound, and blended that back in and blended that in to sort of reinforce that feeling and that idea. We just very, very, very experimental. Just used a boom box as a recording element on the drum kit. Just crappy, just some great Neumann mics with some really crappy broken mics. and just kind of piece it all together. Really try to focus on the reality and the beauty of what Tom Waits is as an artist and a performer. He's not trying to be pretty or polished. Like, he has a lot of rough edges, but like a song like Georgia Lee is like, it is an incredibly sad song. It is performed incredibly beautifully. And so you just kind of have to do things that honor both, it's dark too. It's a really dark song. And, it's about murder and so it's just like trying to make all those things make sense in there. Capturing different sounds like that. Is just really important, and just being in the moment, and just kind of also part of the rough and tumble sort of magic of it is that it is recorded quickly around performances, and then once the performances are captured, then there's a lot of time spent experimenting with overdubs and mixing and so forth to kind of get it to come to life. But I guess that's what I would say. That record was hugely influential for me. Very important.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wonderful. Okay, so yeah, thank you for that one. And do you have time for, say, 2 more?
Yep. Let's make them quick.
Is that okay? Cool. So first one, quick one from the chat room, Victor Lofgren. Jacquire, thanks for an interesting Q&A. Could you tell us a little about the vocal tracking process of Let It Go and in general? Distance between the singer and the microphone, preferred room type, equipment, etc.
Okay. I always put up a lot of microphones and shoot them out for the vocalist. And once I've determined what microphone sounds the best, then I'll pick a mic pre. And then once I've got the mic pre and mic pre recording of the singer, I will then take the recorded version of that, because that's a kind of a patient process. We might try 4, 6, 8 microphones, 4, 6, 8 mic pre's. It's like I got 2 or 3 different kinds of Neves, an API, the desk. Just like pick the mic, then pick the pre, and then with the recorded vocal, I usually have them sing a verse and a chorus. Then I'll, like with a hardware insert, I'll just find the best compressor and a setting, and then I'll just move that over to the record chain. The James Bay song is a Sony C37A. It is a Neve pre 1081, and the compressor is an LA2A.
Great memory.
And it's just that process of elimination. That microphone does not. I just tried to use that microphone on the guy on the singer that I'm working with right now. Wasn't the right thing at all. He sings too loud for it. He's too bright. He sounds great on an SM7. Like Rich, the guy that I'm working with now. So you got to just got to do the experimenting.
To kind of pause you there.
What am I not answering about the question? I feel like I'm leaving.
He asked about distance between the singer and the microphone, preferred room type, and equipment.
Room type, it's whatever sounds comfortable for the singer. Sometimes a small room for a loud vocalist is not a good thing, because they hear too much of themselves in the room. You hear too much room tone. James often liked to sing in a bigger space because he just kind of wanted to project the sound and have it go away from him. Sometimes he wanted to be in a small space so he could feel it coming back. Distance from the microphone, I always set the pop filter like 2 or 3 inches off of it, and you just sort of have to. It depends on the proximity effect that the microphone has, how the singer sings. I just kind of have to observe. Sometimes you want them close to the mic. Sometimes you need them to back away. Just kind of have to figure those things out, and it depends on the voice and the microphone. I have a lot of the vocals that I do here in my own studio. The vocal booth is about 6 by 10. If a lot of times, like with Dallas Green, who sings in a very beautiful, higher, more head voice, little falsetto. And he's not a really loud singer. It's great with the door closed. With Rich, who I'm working with right now. Rich sings super loud,
Hmm.
and super loud, and you have to open the door to kind of let some of that sound out. Otherwise, you hear the space.
Hmm.
So it's just situational.
Yeah,
Just,
sure.
just
Do you have maybe two or three things that you listen for when you're going through those microphones and mic pre's? Are you listening for transient response, bright end, sibilance? What are you focused
yeah,
on?
just to like do like the just tone, like
Hmm.
within the lyric and the notes, words. The transition from, does the chest voice sound full and balanced? Does it transition well to head voice?
Hmm.
How much breath and detail do I hear? And this is before, and I make these decisions before putting a compressor on. It's just like,
Hmm.
how even does it sound? It's just like, I'm trying to pick the best microphone to capture what is a wide ranging instrument, a lot of volume, tone differences,
Yeah.
just the one that represents it the best across all of that stuff. Um, and then, a mic pre that kind of helps kind of focus it more. And then the compressor then becomes as much about tone as it does about actually doing the job of compression.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and that's why I always, not always, but that's why I often have a singer sing a verse and a chorus. I want to hear I want to hear a quieter, more intimate thing, and then a loud and louder, really kind of
Yeah.
more go for it. Because oftentimes there is a shift between the voice that they're using, the way they're projecting
Yeah.
between a verse and a chorus, and just trying to
Yeah.
weigh what the best option is. And the thing is like the voice is so unique. Sometimes a microphone that you wouldn't normally think would be the call, it works for someone.
Hmm.
I mentioned earlier pictures and sound record. I ended up using a 421
Hmm.
on the mic for
Hmm.
the vocal. Now, a 421 was intended to be a voiceover microphone. That microphone is designed for voice. It works really well. It works really well as a kick drum mic, a horn mic,
Hmm.
guitar amps, toms. And it doesn't really get used for vocal recording very often because there's many other things that sound better. But in this particular case, it's the one that just like, it just kind of got the mid range to sit right. The chest to vocal tone was present enough, and it wasn't too toppy or out
Yeah.
of control.
Great.
So, you know, it's,
Thank you.
it's just
That's a great
just trying,
explanation of
just
that.
trying
Yeah.
every little decision that we can make to get closer to the goal, so that you don't have to do a bunch of work on the back end to get something to sound right.
Yeah.
I'm all about the source and doing as much work on the front end as possible,
Right.
and taking all of that to the finish line.
Yeah. Yeah. And quick segue to the last question here. The one of the big questions that we get a lot, especially when we do these mixing contests, are when we download these multi-tracks. They're recorded by a phenomenal engineer, great studio, great equipment, great mics, etc. And a lot of times people say, "Well, I'd love to hear them mix something that was done in my home studio."
Hmm.
And another observation thing from all the pureMix stuff happening, a lot of the reason that those multi-tracks are great doesn't always, in my observation, it doesn't always equate to the equipment, but it's more, again, back to that word of intention and what you're saying about getting the tone right going in on the way and being aware of what you're doing instead of just kind of throwing the mic up and going. um,
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's just a really interesting insight that you just provided there, so
Well,
that
it's
was a
it's just like,
question
and
mark
I'll,
to it.
I'll share something with you. It's just like in choosing vocal mics for Chris. I mean, not for Chris. I mean, for Chris is the guitar player. For Rich, I put up what I thought. I put up that same Sony C37 that I recorded James with. I thought, you know
Hmm.
what? I hadn't recorded his voice before. I didn't realize how loud he sang, but he's got a high, pure, really powerful voice. But I didn't he was like crushing that mic. It just was too much level for it. He was too bright. It was too bright on him. Um, you just don't know. And then and honestly, I was like, wow. I was like, because he recorded his own demo vocals and they sounded pretty good. And I was like, okay, so I'm thinking I need to switch to like an SM7 or something. What do you record with? And he's like, I use an SM7. I was like, okay, makes sense. And I'm like, what mic pre do you use? And he's like, oh, I just use a Focusrite. It's just a Focusrite Sapphire. But it's just, it's just like, wow. It's, the insight that I would share with you is that the way that he has sang his demos, they don't sound finished, but there is a quality to it because he's used to it and he's good at doing it, and he's a great singer. That's just like, I'm trying to figure out how to make a better sounding version of what his demo vocals feel like, sonically. Just like trying to figure out how to get something that already sounds pretty good. It doesn't sound finished. It doesn't sound like a record, but the intention of it kind of sounds right. I'm trying to figure out how, with this new experience of him singing it with a producer as opposed to him just singing his demos, singing it in a studio with this different equipment, this different environment, with the tracks sounding much different and bigger, like how am I going to get that to happen? I'm still trying to figure that out. The SM7 is right. I know we've got all the best stuff, but now it's my job is, it's not simply about putting the right microphone in front of him or the right signal chain. It's like also it's like, what kind of conversations do I need to have with him? What's important in his headphone balance? Like what effects? Excuse me. What effects are going to make? We're going to make, going to make it feel familiar and correct to him while he's singing. May not be the right thing for the end result, but it's like, how do you manage all those things? It's not all just about choosing the microphone, set it and forget it.
Right.
There's a lot of there's a lot of other things that go into capturing a good performance, and being like, when I'm doing vocals, like having the lyrics in front of me. Can I, is he singing it the way it's written? Does it sound better the way he's singing if he's not singing the way it's written? Draw attention to the way it's written. Just be really connected and really focused on the moment of a vocal recording, because singing is it's like the body is the instrument. Right. And it's like, if someone doesn't feel comfortable, emotionally connected, or they don't feel in the best voice, if you don't have good communication and support and insight immediately into that situation, then it'll get away from you and you won't get good vocals. It's just a very tricky process. Yeah. I don't know if I guess I'm just sharing all that to say that I think vocals is one of the hardest things to record. Yeah. I think it's something that you need to give a lot of attention to. There's someone that I've been working with recently, and sent me a bunch of demos, and it's like, what do you think of the songs? I'm like, well, it sounds like you sang these one time and you really haven't been thinking about the vocal performance. So a month goes by and new demos, and it's like, just making that little comment, the vocal sounds so much better now. Not that suddenly there's a lot more takes or effort necessarily into getting the demo vocal. It's just like that awareness. Yeah. And sort of so that going into it before it's like, are my thoughts organized? Do I know how I want this to feel? As opposed to then just kind of like singing it one time and that's the demo. Just trying to inform the process a little bit more from the start. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it all ties along with the intention thing. So in the interest of time, I gotta go. Give you a short question. So one thing I'd like to leave people with, if you had one piece of advice for guys who are starting out, they're working in a home studio, what do you think that might be? Well, guys and gals, you're working in your home studio, do not listen to your music just in your home studio. Take it out into the world and feel it and experience it out in the world. Even shed some light on it. Share it with others. Get some opinions. We all have to be vulnerable. you know, working in your home studio. It's very isolated, and you know, just look for opportunities to get outside of that environment and have some perspective, and just sort of see how it feels out in the world. I guess that's the way I would answer that. You know, just force yourself to grow.
Absolutely.
Get yourself out of your comfort zone and force yourself to grow. And you know, it's like this is all so subjective. You know, that's not everything is going to be successful or great or feel right. I am accomplished and capable, but I'm not the right guy for everything. I'm not the right mixer. I'm not the right producer. I'm just not the right personality for something. So we just have to understand that about ourselves too, and not be, just be understanding about that.
Yeah.
Kind of, but see maybe where we want to grow and focus on that, but also realize what your strengths are and also cater to those appropriately. Don't impose your will on something, but realize where your strengths and weaknesses are and sort of utilize that stuff.
Right.
Get out of your studio.
Right. Great. Yeah. Thank you very much. It's a great.
Yeah. No problem.
Great response.
Well, congratulations to everybody for a successful little project here. I've enjoyed it a lot. I'm very grateful for everybody showing up, making the mixes. I hope that there's something to take away. And congratulations to the winners. Yeah. I look forward to seeing you again on the platform. We'll be doing more stuff soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Jacquire, thank you. Thanks for all your time. Thanks for doing this today. Yeah, and thank you for what you bring to the craft too and your dedication to it. You've made some incredibly inspiring records that I know definitely have changed the way that I look at record making and everything. So, on behalf of everybody, thank you. Yeah.
Well, very, very humbled by that. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. So let's get you out of here. A couple of quick housekeeping things. Everybody, just one more reminder that Sugar is now available. It's our first plugin from our new company called Process.audio. That's available to all of you guys who are watching this, who are Pro members, for free. There's instructions on the homepage of the website that you can go to and figure out how to redeem your license. And then also a quick reminder that we have a really fun Facebook group for you guys to check out. A lot of the mentors drop in from time to time. You guys can drop in there as well. Just go in, request to join the group, and we'll get you in. A lot of fun conversations happening over there, and we just crossed over 6,000 members, so definitely check that out. Cool. All right. Well, yeah, Jacquire, thank you very much again. Hope you have a great rest of the day. And
thank you.
Yeah,
you
looking
too.
forward to more content. So
yeah. Best wishes to everyone.
Thanks for watching, everybody. See you soon.
See ya.